the NextGen ProServ podcast, a podcast where we're bringing disruptors in the professional services industry into the limelight. I'm joined by my buddy Patrick. Hey, Pat, thanks for joining.
Thanks for having me.
We're so excited to have you today. Do you mind introducing yourself for the audience a little bit about your role in your company and even a little bit of background about how you got into professional services?
Sure. Yeah, so my name is Patrick Meidenbauer. I'm the CEO of StrengthsInsights Consulting based in Cleveland. My career started at Evolution Consulting, where we did risk strategy for some large corporations throughout the United States and even throughout the world. And after that, I went to Deloitte. I worked for the chief strategy and technology officers of Deloitte Global. I loved the work that I was doing, but I was really passionate about working with more small and mid-sized companies. And so I decided to start my own firm, Strengths Insights, about 2.5 years ago. And it's been wonderful. I love seeing the impact that we're able to make quickly from both a strategy and operations perspective with smaller clients. You can see the impact that you have a lot more quickly than big firms, and it's been a really good change of pace.
That's amazing. I've been so excited to bring you onto the podcast and share your story, especially with that local flair for Cleveland, but even more so. I mean, you have that global strategy and skill set from your early days and now making really big impact for a couple of companies here. So, do you mind telling us a little bit about some current projects or the solutions that you provide to your clients?
Sure. So we do kind of two types of work, primarily strategy work, looking at how companies can win more clients, and then operations work and how they can run them more efficiently and effectively. So on the strategy side of the house, we're working with several companies right now to look at how they're positioned in the market and looking at if they should try to attract different types of customers, position their products and service in a way that's more attractive and promotes the differentiators that they have. And then on an operations front, we do kind of a hodgepodge of work from helping build up managers and leaders within organizations to process improvements and putting new technology in place for companies. And a lot of that starts with just simple identification of what a business needs. What we find often is, especially for small and mid-sized companies that have grown organically, identifying the crux of the issue that needs to be addressed is often the most challenging part of the project. And then from there, going through the kind of a regular process is the easier part of the project once the challenge is actually identified.
Yeah, that's what's so interesting about your line of work, I think, and what's going to be fun about telling a few stories here on the podcast today, because it's going to resonate with a lot of our customer base, right? With op mentors, we're working with Certinia PSA. These are folks who already have a tool in place or may be considering going live with new technology. But exactly what you said, that why buy, really identifying the core pieces of, where in my process do I need automation? Or where is the people side not matching the process? And is
Sure.
this more of a coaching and learning opportunity?
Yeah.
So even when you meet new prospects, how much time do you typically see in the business development side where you're learning about their business, identifying pain points, and building trust before you're getting into that solution side?
Yeah, usually quite a bit. A lot of our work comes from referrals and word of mouth where somebody said, "Oh, I've got the same problem as you. How'd you go about it?" And they get linked up with myself or our team pretty organically. Um, but identifying that core issue is often pretty challenging and takes a lot of teasing out. For instance, a lot of companies think they've got a strong strategy in place, and then when you start to dive into it, you recognize they're doing a lot of the same things as most of their competitors and not doing anything that uniquely positions themselves to win more and more business. Especially in industries like construction and healthcare, insurance, and businesses that are fairly well established. It's especially interesting because everyone competes the exact same way. And so when you can put a different spin on it, especially for a small and mid-sized company, you have a huge opportunity to stand out in the marketplace. On the operations front, I think it's the same thing. And I'd be interested in your perspective on this, Molly, is a lot of the time folks think they've got one challenge when it's instead something else. So for instance, a lot of companies ask us to come in and look at technology options when it's really a process problem that they have in place. So I often say start with the process and figuring out how you want to operate and then put in really strong processes, data automation that supports that way of operating.
Yeah, exactly. We see that a fair bit too, right? Folks are in the tool evaluation stage and they want to see a demo of Certinia, for example, in our
Mhm.
world. And so much of what we do is listen to who are all the people in the room, what is their role and responsibility in that process, and can the tool match their existing state, but more importantly, the desired state. And finding that adoption framework that really fits with where are you today and can we mature and adopt and grow into that. So a fair number of our consulting agreements are what we call optimization programs, right there with you, where we're going to do a heavy discovery,
Mhm.
roadmap some thoughts and ideas that are a blend of people, process, and tooling. And so I think that's where the synergy between our two businesses is really neat. But of course, your go-to-market strategy is such a unique piece as well that complements the revenue side with the operations side.
Sure.
So do you mind talking too a little bit about who are the types of stakeholders that you work with, both on the revenue and the operations side, their roles and
Sure.
responsibilities, and kind of where you come into play being a part of their embedded team or strategist?
Yeah. Yeah, it's an interesting question, and it definitely shifted when I started Strengths Insights versus when I was at Deloitte and Evolution prior to that. When I was on some of those larger teams working with, massive enterprises, you were trying to focus and figure out who that right stakeholder was. For most of the businesses that we work with now, it's pretty clear. If we work with companies that are typically around $2 million to $200 million in that small mid-size range. And most of the times to drive true strategy, true operations, we find the COO or excuse me, CEO or COO are typically the right stakeholders for those conversations. Not that they need to be in every conversation, not that they're necessarily the one going to be on every call to understand the nuances of the processes or what technology needs to be used, but to make sure that there's a strong commitment at a leadership level for the project that we're going into. From there, we work with a lot of teams. So especially as we get towards that upper 150, $200 million range for organizations, we're working with a lot of team leaders, directors, vice presidents. But the best projects we do start with leadership buy-in.
Yeah. Do you have any like specific ceremonies or documents that you use to kind of kick off, educate, do that really classic why and investment
Yeah.
discussion?
Yes and no. So we do three types of projects. So if you look at our website or you really talk about what we do, we offer three kind of out of the box service packages. So one focuses on making sure you've got the right managers and leaders and they know how to lead teams successfully. Statistics actually show that most teams and most organizations don't have that in place. We do another service option where we're looking at the organizational strategy and making sure you've got a strong market fit, that you're competing well, and that you've got the right operations to drive that business forward. And then we have a third kind of product where we're looking at your core processes, doing an evaluation, much like what you were talking about, and
Hmm.
seeing where technology, new processes, and systems can be in place. So to your initial question, when we do any of those kind of out of the box projects, which is
Yep.
typically our starting point with organizations, yes, we have quite a bit of that. When we do more custom work or managed services on an ongoing basis, which is the vast majority of our work. We usually kick off a product, it goes well, and then we end up working with a company long term. At that point, it's more of a fluid conversation where on a quarterly basis, we understand what's working in the company because we're in essence a part of it at that
Yeah.
point. And then we help reestablish what new priorities and expectations should be
Yeah, we
set
we talk
to go
about that all
forward.
the time, right? Building trust and being so transparent that you are embedded within that team. And you should already be knowing those priorities or anticipating them by the time you have that long-term relationship. So,
Well, and I think when we've talked before, I think you've told me that you have a similar model in many ways where you start out on a project basis and then typically evolve where you're working with folks on a longer term basis. Do I remember that
Yeah, yeah,
right?
exactly. And I mean, the most exciting part really is seeing how those relationships really thrive over time and new things come and go. And I mean, we're talking to some of our existing enterprise customers now about investing in AI, just like
Yeah,
everyone, right? Big topic.
sure.
And they're agreeing to go up the food chain and ask for approval to be a beta customer or learn something new from us even on a complimentary level, because when you give and take with some of your clients, when you have that deep trust, you can grow and evolve together. And those are the best types of customers that we really love.
Well, that's actually when people ask me why I love doing what I do now, it's exactly what you're talking about is that when you work for a relatively small company, you've got the opportunity to say, I know this isn't really in the contract. I know this isn't what we really planned for, but I know this is going to provide a lot of value. This is going to be good for our partnership. And I love that because virtually all of the projects that we start, we expand and contract the scope a little bit over time, where we recognize as we learn more and more and a project evolves that sometimes what we set out to do, we find new ways to improve that over time. And I really enjoy that about the work that I do now, and especially when you gain that level of trust with companies where they value your input and they're seeking that out.
Yeah, yeah, exactly. And what an interesting kind of challenge, right? We talk a lot about growing a book of business and how we kind of manage our customer base and how we're organically growing these companies based on word of mouth, right? I think that's really important for your story. Can you talk to me even a bit about how you're running your firm and what you've learned along the way from working at large companies and how you're growing your business from, a pipeline of prospects and making sure you're watching your booked
Sure.
revenue and what you're doing to manage that with projects and billing, right? Kind of that quote to cash. How's it been running your own firm?
Yeah. Well, I'll start with my clients and then I'll back into me. So when I started working with big companies. And so I thought that's how everybody worked. I thought that's just how business was, is you went in, there was kind of clear problems, clear solutions. You brought in the experts to address it. And when I started working more with small and mid-sized companies, and actually before that, I helped run a few nonprofits. And so seeing that in a bit kind of startup nonprofit setting as well, I recognized a lot of the time it's just about figuring it out. And so
Hmm.
for smaller, mid-sized companies, like they don't necessarily have all of the exposure to some of those same level of experience and opportunities and hindsight to inform decision making. And so it's been really neat being able to pull in some of that experience that I have in the past and some of the solutions that I've seen either myself or others have the opportunity to um, go through and bring that experience into companies that haven't even thought about some of those things before. Like even the strategy front, most companies don't necessarily think about having a true strategy. They're just operating on this is the next thing, this is the evolution of the business without thinking about that broader context. And so that's been really exciting to bring some of those concepts to clients. For myself personally, it's an ongoing challenge, I think, and it's really exciting in that way. Is in one breath, I talk about needing this really core strategy, having these ingrained processes, really strong data, and the importance and value of that. Also recognizing that I'm a two-person firm. It's me and my partner, and then some contractors we use. So a pretty small entity, and it's hard to sit there and say we need this definitive strategy. We need clarity of processes. We don't want to expand or contract what we're doing and have it written in stone because we're still evolving. And this is a long answer to a short question, but I do think that personal experience has been valuable to clients as well to say, in one breath, yes, I think we really do need a strong strategy. We should put in some level of standards, processes, policies, et cetera, but also recognizing that you need a level of flexibility, a degree of adaptability, and trying to find that right uh, level of that based on the how the business operates.
For sure. And recognizing, right, that size, scale, and maturity at different levels. And it's really a big context switch as an operations consultant then to put on your enterprise hat and show up every day for your clients who are asking different level questions than maybe what you're experiencing day to day. And that skill set is just very unique, very impressive, right? It takes a very specific type of entrepreneur to operate in this scale and in this market. So just hats off to you. It's pretty great to see.
Well, thanks. I appreciate that.
Yeah.
I'm interested in your experience with this too, is with a lot of the clients that I'm working with now, they might be a $50 million company or a $100 million company, but they started very small. Like their CEO started the business or they took it over from their family or acquired the business. And then they went from, $500,000 to another $50 million. And they're going, shoot, we've been operating the same way as when we did 10 years ago. And now they're playing some level of catch up and trying to right size those operations and those processes and their
Mhm.
technology. And that to me is really interesting, is also that level of coaching to say, well, yeah, it worked 10 years ago, but your business is drastically different, and
Yeah,
that's
of
something you
course.
need to evolve as well.
Yeah, I mean, the core heartbeat of when we approach these kind of optimization projects with longstanding firms is we're always asking, so how do you make money? What do you sell to who and how do you deliver? And then
Mhm.
get into those KPIs. So in services, it's what are your utilization targets? What's your chargeability
Right,
today? How do you effectively deploy a bench, right? Making the correct staffing decisions at the right time for the right people. And
right,
sometimes that's breaking down the human element of when you grow a firm, they're like, oh, I know Sally. She's the best project manager, and
right,
everything is in your head sometimes when you scale so quickly,
right,
and your process is ingrained in the longevity of people. So it's like a really wonderful thing to have employees in those cases too have worked for these companies a long
right.
time. They know exactly how things work. But going back to the standard operating procedures, documenting all of that knowledge, or even putting in place tooling that can automate the things
Sure,
that are happening every day. You're
sure.
finding those efficiencies with those types of companies. And that's with tooling, right? So that's where we're coming into the room with Certinia. The other side of it truly is, as you talked about, it's well, who do we want to be when we grow up? And now that you have a new leader, it's reestablishing vision.
Right.
And we see leadership changes actually a fair bit. Just when you buy a tool or you go through merger and acquisition, when we're being
Mhm.
brought into the room, it can be shifts in leadership or changes in roles and responsibilities. So we're also doing fine-tooth combing on groups of people that have a job function. And now with new tooling, kind of reassessing those roles and responsibilities and how can you work in a new system. So we see that a fair bit too. And that's the fun part, right? The people
Yeah.
side of consulting too.
I said we typically start our projects with the CEO or a COO of a company, typically. Who's your, primary touch point, the account owner, so to speak, of your projects?
Yeah, it's usually a professional services operations manager. So it's the
Okay.
person that is in the services org, has a dotted line to revenue and a dotted line to operations, right? And they're
Right.
overseeing usually the project kickoff. So
Sure.
after closed won opportunities, it's that person that's saying, what's
Right.
the funnel of upcoming work and how do we keep our resources busy?
So I'm interested in your thoughts on this. When we start a project, and I think this sounds obvious saying it out loud, but that stakeholder who you're selling to and who you're working with at that upfront discovery stage, they get it. They see the value, they want to drive the project. I think one of the interesting things that I see is conveying that level of importance of the project. Why bring in outside support? Why do this project now? Why kind of stir things up, especially with a lot of the clients who I work with who are doing really well. I get that question or pushback a lot, and I'm interested if you had those similar types of questions when you kick off projects with teams.
Sometimes, I mean, the stakeholder buy-in, of course, at kickoff is really important. And
Mhm.
everything that you can capture from your sales cycle into the project, also very, very important.
Mhm.
So, not sure if this answers your question, but we're actually trying to solve it with AI right now. There's a company
Sure.
we're partnering with called Moonox, and it's an AI platform that can actually sit on top of CRM, task management, ERP, kind of agnostic to whatever the solutions are. But capturing context around why were decisions made, what risks were brought up during which phases, just have we done this kind of project before with what style people? And
Yeah.
it can overarchingly grab all of the data from our systems. I mean, we talk about it all the time. We're sitting on a gold mine of customer information in your CDP or project information about estimates and actuals. And
Yeah.
the why, the emotional side, the context to the conversation, this AI tool is now going to pull that forward so that when we're doing our sales to delivery and even financials conversations, these agents are included in the context of the conversation
Yeah.
and can pull information at the right time in the right place. So
Yeah.
it's truly turning into this advisory style agent that we
Sure.
think is going to be really important to kind of dissecting all of
Yeah.
those conversations that happen or the politicking that we see within the four walls of a business when
Yeah.
you're making choices on sales to service handoffs and
Sure.
why we're doing certain things.
Sure. Folks that you work with within their teams, what has been the biggest pushback or value you've seen from those AI conversations? I think every time I say AI with a client, I get half the room is like, this is the best idea ever, and half the room is like, we don't want to touch that, keep it away
Yep.
from us.
Yeah, yeah, of
Interesting.
course. Well, you have your early adopters and you have your people who want to see proof. And
Yeah,
so right now we're focusing on those beta clients that are interested in trying.
sure.
I also am listening to the folks who are saying definitely not now. 2026 is AI readiness year, and maybe 2027 is AI implementation year.
Yeah,
And so we're approaching it from both sides.
yeah,
And the folks who get nervous are they're in the camp, I guess, of like, can I trust what it's giving me? It's not anti more solutions. It's not anti automation. It's can I trust it? And so, of course, trust simply comes with
sure.
time,
Yeah,
time and understanding of the solution. So I think it's coming from fear.
yeah,
So you got to jump right in. And I think people who are on the early stage, they're going to get really far ahead just because that technology is changing so quickly.
yeah,
So encouraging folks to try is
yeah,
and try at a low budget. I mean, that's one of the reasons why we're looking at all of these AI tools to make recommendations to our prospects, just so that they're comfortable. We're looking
sure.
for really cost-effective use cases. So
Yeah,
when we think of a use case that we can consult with our clients, it's typically something that's additive rather than
mhm,
taking away a function they're really comfortable with today. So like
right.
our customers in an operations lens, like a closed won opportunity in Salesforce will come into Certinia PSA with the project information. What's the budget? What are the phases of the project? And who are the people we need to staff? And the
Yep,
people that are hands on keyboard in these operation roles are selecting people to staff. They might be using some intelligence and automation to pick the most available project manager who should be on the
sure.
project, and timekeeping and billing. And so we're finding what's the use case where there isn't technology today. And right now, that's
Mhm,
that sales to service handoff. Data is
sure,
great. What did
sure.
we sell for how much? And you can kick off a project very quickly. And that flows really well. But that contextual, why are we doing this project? What executive was sponsoring this initiative? Does it
Right.
align to particular OKRs or value prop or vision in their strategy? So it's not just, why are we doing
Yeah,
this? Project, scope, budget, let's deliver. There's agents that can be added to really enhance your consulting in the project and what you're
sure.
doing. So, yeah, I hope that answers the question. It's kind
No,
of
it does.
it's the half empty, half full on AI, and we're going half full of
Yeah,
this is something additive that's going to add
right.
value immediately.
Yeah, that makes sense. I think I really like when you're saying using that word additive about how do you layer things on? Because I think in our approach, and I go back to the fact that oftentimes I get asked about what software or especially right now AI is available, and I think you actually have to consider your processes first, then the software component. I think the what you're bringing up on that additive piece is really important because oftentimes when we go and make that switch, we say, okay, processors are generally good. Maybe there's improvement opportunities. Let's go ahead and put technology in place. The question immediately in my mind is where are those small wins we can pick up? So yes, we've now uh, put software in place that goes with your processes, that complements your process, that hopefully speeds up, provides more transparency, better communication.
Mhm.
Now, where can we start picking up the wins? So, if that
Yeah.
let you work a little bit more effectively, how do we start making you work way more effectively by taking away some of the, especially repetitive work and things like that, that, you know,
Great. Well,
doesn't
and
require
it might
human input?
unlock what was repetitive. So our
Mhm.
systems and our automations are in place today for our customers.
Yeah,
And there's automations there that are making things streamlined and visible, right? A lot of people are working in the open and their reports are visible and their data is visible. But now if we were doing up funnel automation with AI around, oh, I couldn't make that phone call, I was on vacation, rather than just like, spitting out meeting notes, which a lot of basic AI platforms are doing,
sure,
right? They consolidate and give you a summary. This
sure.
is actually a tool that can merge the conversation with the data points. So we're
Hmm.
already automating those data points. This
Sure.
is bringing it together up front. So
Yeah, that's great.
we're really not even sure what will the impact to utilization, chargeability, time to value in software, what our customers are doing because we
Sure.
haven't added it yet. So that's why it's let's add in that AI up front and
Yeah,
really closely measure the downstream impacts because we don't quite know today, but we need people to try.
right. I agree with that 100%.
Yeah, yeah, it's so cool. It's very fun to dream about it. And we have, of course, like our laundry list of use cases and things we're thinking about.
Sure.
And once you get feedback, it's fun to share. And we're going
Yeah.
to figure out what to attack and be unique.
For your business specifically, have you put in any, how are you using AI?
Good question. We started with our service offering. We've productized services using AI.
Mhm.
That's good from a quality and a consistency perspective for what
Sure.
we deliver for clients. And we thought that would be the best place to start for capturing the knowledge that we have. So 10 years in business with the product that we serve, Certinia, their knowledge base is public. So as all their releases go
Sure.
out, new capability. So we're marrying that together for our offering. Next, we're going to see. I genuinely am debating the is time and materials dead conversation. I ask it in every podcast, so I'd love your feedback.
Yeah.
And it's outcome based. I'm still dreaming about it. What does professional services really look like? And as much of this that I can do, hands off keyboard, not producing assets and spending time charging clients for making material when we've already had this great conversation, or I had a brainstorming session with someone internally. I want to save customers time. So in the time and
Great.
materials world, I really want it value based so that they're
Mhm.
getting really the core, not 80% of all the time we're doing on projects. We just want them paying for that last 20%, that outcome,
Right.
and finding ways to do that with AI. So our jobs are more enjoyable as consultants, right? Gone are the days I used to like click through Excel sheets and update my status on tasks. And I just think about where I started and now how
Right.
much of it's being captured. And I'm like, I'm ready for what's next.
Yeah.
What
Yeah,
about
it makes
you?
sense. So for me, I think on the operations side, I'm not using AI as much. I use a lot of automations and a lot of technology and a lot of data, but not as much AI at the moment. On the strategy front, I use AI all the time. So um, especially for when I think about how do you develop a great strategy for a business, I think it's about what you will do and what you won't do. How are you going to stand out for your clients? And there's got to be trade-offs. So you can't do everything for everyone. And so figuring out what options are there, what problems exist, I think follows a pretty regimented process if you haven't thought about strategy before. First, you want to see who your customers are, what are their problems that they're having, what solutions already exist out there in the marketplace, what are your customers, if you have them, doing already and expecting of you. Like there's some solid work that needs to go into informing a strong strategy. And I tie that back to AI because, to your point, 5 or 10 years ago, you would spend hours and hours and hours and hours and hours thinking about all of those possibilities and going out and exploring the marketplace. A lot of that now you use AI for, and it makes you go quicker, better, faster, and your ideas come out a lot stronger. For me, that's been a huge advantage. To your point, though, in my mind, a consultant's job, whether it's strongly technology or strategy and operations, is getting to a solution. And so that helps with a lot of the upfront thought work. But I think where you bring in consulting experts is to provide supplementary support to a business in a way that their staff can't. They just don't have the time or the expertise. That piece I don't think is going away for consultants. I think for forever, businesses will need that. And I'm trying to figure out how to do more and more of that piece of work and less of the things that AI can do for us now.
Yeah, of course. Wow, that makes a lot of sense, actually. And I haven't heard anyone articulate it that way.
More.
Well, thanks so much for joining. We're so glad that you joined NextGen ProServ podcast as we are making our first big splash and welcome the opportunity to talk to you again soon.
Awesome. Well, thank you so much.
You're welcome. Thanks for joining.